Jim and Paul founded Partners in Health together, and I started working with them when they were working on a project in Caraballo, Peru, a little shanty town outside of Lima. And they found out that a lot of people there had TB, but it was TB that wouldn't respond to the usual TB drugs. It was multiply resistant MDR TB. It's very hard to treat, and it takes treatment with 7 or 8 different drugs, each with a highly toxic side effect at the same time, and not for 6 months like regular TB, but taking combinations of these highly toxic drugs for 24 months, 2 years. And they had seen that in New York City, there had been an outbreak of MDR TB, and it cost to treat those patients $200,000 a person for successful treatment. They'd been hospitalized, treated for a long time, and declared cured, but the costs were so high that the World Health Organization said, we can't afford to treat poor people in poor countries if they have MDR TB, because it takes away from resources we need for treating people with non-resistant TB and other diseases. So if a poor person in a poor country gets MDR TB, the policy of the World Health Organization is we just have to let them die. And as you might guess, this was totally unacceptable to Paul and to Jim. And so they figured out how to get drugs down to Lima, Peru, and to Caraballo. They went to the hospital pharmacy. Now, this pharmacy at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, you have to understand, was set up to provide drugs for house officers whose kid might have an ear infection. And sometimes these house officers would run up a bill, maybe $25 that they hadn't paid. And one day, while Jim and Paul were taking suitcases full of these very expensive medicines down with them on each trip to Lima, one day Howard Hyatt got a call from the head of medicine who said, Howard, your boys have got to stop. Their bill is now $50,000. $50,000.
97.
Howard pleaded on your behalf, and he got the hospital to agree to let you keep taking some drugs. But then, as Jim said, it ran up to $97,000, approaching $100,000, and the hospital was going to shut them down. You called me, and you said, we need a grant. We need a grant for about $1 million, and I think that will get us through. We can keep our successful program going long enough to show the world that it works. Well, I thought $1 million was a lot of money to get for the Pied Pipers, but we had a meeting with Bill at the task force, and Bill came, Paul and Jim made their case, and at that time, Bill was working with the Gates Foundation. And we worked for about a year, and during that year, back and forth, finally, we got a grant, and the grant was the largest grant that the Gates Foundation had ever given for MDR TB. It was for $44.5 million. And this began the Partners TB program in Peru. It was an extraordinary program.
Can I add a note?
Sure.
When this grant proposal went to Bill Gates, he sent it back to me and said, aren't they padding the budget? And so, which they were, but I sent him a copy of the New Yorker magazine that talked about Paul had only one suit, and it was a black suit because he tended to get ink stains on it. And I said, people with one suit don't usually pad the budget. And he approved it.